Again, this afternoon we are talking about nurturing mental well being in the home, and we are coming to you live via Zoom. From using calming colors, infusing interiors with a calming attitude, and bringing the outdoors in, we now go to the importance of decluttering your spaces to give your mental health a much needed boost. I am so excited to see this demo that this girl is going to show us today. Once again, here's our KonMari expert, Christine Dychiao.
Thank you, Ame. So, welcome to the art of organizing your personal space. I hope that by the end of the webinar, you've acquired the techniques and the mindset that you would need to create a space that really inspires and nurtures you. Next slide, please. Yes, even if your space looks like this, next slide, or like this. Next slide. My name is Christine Dychiao. I'm a mom of three, and I've worked with so many clients who wanted to tidy. And I assure you, no matter what your situation is at home or if you live with messy people, I guarantee you, we all can tidy. Next slide. We all can do it. You just have to want to do it and follow these 3 tips that I will be sharing with you. Next slide. The first rule really is to tidy up. Next slide. I would suggest doing the KonMari method because it worked for me. I was, a messy person before, and it really transformed my life. And that is why I'm such an advocate of her method. Next slide. It has 6 rules. And if you follow these 6 rules, I guarantee you, you will be successful at tidying. Next slide. Okay, the first rule, you have to commit and you have to celebrate. That means you commit time to do it and you have to kind of shift your mindset and think tidying is a celebration. It's not a chore. Remember, success is 90% mindset. So if you commit to tidying and you come with the frame of mind that it's going to be fun, you're going to liberate yourself from clutter, you are 90% there. Next slide. As Master Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. So don't say, I'm going to try to tidy, but say, I'm going to tidy. I'm going to commit to it. Next slide. The second rule is you have to imagine how your space will look like. Like Wilmer is an interior designer. Before he starts building a space, they have mood boards. They have a visual of how the space will look. And that's the same with tidying. You have to be able to figure out, what do I want out of this space? How do I want it to look? And why do I want to tidy? In this example, the mom wanted to tidy because this was her work desk. She says, I don't really like putting on makeup, but I love mixing oils. And I want to turn this into my, mixing my oils zone. And next slide. In just 2 hours, she got her wish. Next slide. Of course, previous to that, she had to clear out the clutter in her closet. There were so many empty boxes, empty shopping bags, things she didn't really need but was keeping anyway. And when she moved those things out, she found space for Spark Joy oiling supplies. Next slide. Another work desk. This time, the client said, I want to be able to work. That's just my goal. I want it clean, clutter-free, because the kids would dump stuff on my table. Next slide. In 2 hours, yes, just 2 hours, she also got that space she's always wanted. Next. In this example, my client said, I want to have a dining table where I can do homework with my son, where we can have a meal together, because currently with all the clutter in her home, they were eating their meals on the couch or on the bed, or they'd just rather eat out. So they weren't really spending that quality time together. Next slide. Again, in 3 hours. Okay, this took 3 hours, but in that span of time, she was able to get what she wanted because it was clear in her head, this is what she wanted out of her space. Next slide. Now, the next rule is you have to let go of things. I know this is difficult, but this is necessary because you need to be able to clear out the space to create what you really want in your life. It sounds metaphoric also, but it's also true. To be able to clear out the clutter in your life, you have to let go of things for the new things or what you really want to come into your life. Next slide. Now, the fourth rule is tidy by category, not by area, not by room. We've always been taught, oh, clean your room. But here, she is recommending that we tidy by category because you are focusing on a certain category and you have a game plan. You're going to start with your clothes. Next slide. So you gather everything and just return what sparks joy for you. That's the only thing that will go back to your closet. Next slide. Then you work on your books. So have a landing zone. That's where you put everything, put it on the floor, and then go through each book one by one. Next slide. What goes back to your bookcase are the books that spark joy for you. Next slide. The third category will be paper. The same thing. Please take them out from wherever it is hidden, inside envelopes, inside folders, inside your bag. Next slide. And then create categories for them, subcategories. You can either do it by, pending or immediate. You have to work on it. You have to sign a check, pay a bill. Things you want to keep, or things that you have to keep, like passports, land titles, art certificates, and things that you need to keep for a limited period or have to keep, like tax returns, warranties, receipts, and stuff like that. So these three piles will help you be able to sort out paper in a methodical manner. Next slide. The fourth category would be kimono or miscellaneous. That's Japanese for miscellaneous. So it's toys. It's a big category because it encompasses your kitchen stuff, your toiletries, your food, home decor, anything that's not clothes, books, and paper. So in this example, the example are toys. Next slide. The son, who is the one responsible for decluttering his toys, was able to minimize and keep everything in just two bookcases. And the fifth category here was sentimental items, which are the stuffed toys on the top shelf, because the mom could not let go of the toys. Next slide. And that is why it's important to follow the right order. You start with your clothes, and then your books, your paper, your kimono or miscellaneous, and lastly, sentimental, because sentimental things are the hardest to let go of because they are triggers. They trigger memories, emotions, feelings, whether good or bad. And that is why it's hard to let go of them. But if you follow the right order, you start with the easy ones. You have to think of it as, by level of difficulty. You start with the easy ones, the clothes, the books, and end with sentimental, because by then you would have trained your ability to recognize what sparks joy for you, and it's really fast for you to decide, okay, should I keep, donate, sell, or discard. Next slide. And this is the most popular rule of them all. You ask yourself, does it spark joy? I know a lot of people are like, what does spark joy mean? And I'll break it down for you. Next slide. You really should be keeping just three types of things. First is, okay, things that like absolutely make you happy. It really sparks joy when you use it, when you see it. Another is something that provides functional joy, like your laptop, your screwdriver, a stapler. They're not exactly spark joy things, but they help you. They serve you, and it makes life easier for you because it helps you get the job done. And the third thing that you should keep are things that lead to future joy, which means it will make you happy and you will use it. It's not just you're keeping it for one day, but you know that I'm going to read this book or I'm going to play this instrument. It's something that, will really make you happy. Next slide. Remember, clutter is not just stuff on your floor. It's really something or anything that stands between you, where you are now, and the life you want to be living. Next slide. You have to understand clutter has a cost. If your house was a warehouse, you'd have to be spending storage fees, diba, to keep these things. And in reality, your clutter is costing you. If you have excess stuff and your house is a mess, you're losing time. You're losing time because you're looking for lost things. You're not being productive. You cannot work straight away. It's costing you money because you could be, forgetting to pay a bill, and then you'll have to pay penalties or late fees. Or you have to buy something you already have just because you can't find it. Another is your health. It's impacting your health because a study by the UCLA Center for Everyday Lives of Families has shown that the more kalat in house, the more clutter in the house, the higher the stress or the cortisol levels in the brain. So it's really scientifically linked. There are many studies, if you research, that shows that clutter is linked to stress, anxiety, depression. So take this seriously, guys. And finally, it's costing you the space you've always wanted, the space you've always needed for yourself, for your own, self-care and well-being. Next slide. Remember, tidying transforms your life. It changes how you shop, how you spend. I've had clients who found their dream job in the middle of the pandemic just by tidying. I've had clients who left a toxic relationship, clear skin, lost weight. I mean, you think it's not related, but wow, I mean, I get goosebumps whenever I think of, how life transforming it has been for many people. So you have to try it for yourself. And of course, you never go back to clutter again because you know how to deal with your clutter. Next slide. Now, tip number 2. The goal really in storage is to have a home for everything you own. So everything in your house has to have a place where they will go back to so that you know where to find them. And 2, you know where to put them back. Next slide. When creating your storage, think of, your lifestyle and then create a zone for it. This is really one great way to personalize your space. What's important to you? Do you love drinking coffee in the morning? Do you love drinking tea? Next slide. Do you want to carve out a space in your home where you can work productively and not be bothered? Next slide. And like Wilmer says, do you love plants? Then have a home or an area in your home where you can really grow your plants. So it's really about going back to what do I love and what inspires me, and then create a zone for that. Next slide. If you have limited space, please feel free to make use of vertical space. It means you can create storage up to the wall. It can look pretty. It doesn't have to look cluttered all the time. And floating shelves are one easy and budget friendly way to create that space. Next slide. When storing in your zone, store by category. So try to keep everything within that zone. So if you like to have, your tools, you're a handyman, have all your tools in one area. Don't scatter them around the house. Next slide. Keep everything like electrical stuff together, your gadgets together, your sporting equipment together, everything that is of the same material, linens, your shoes, all in one place. So it's easy to find and it's easy to store. Next slide. Remember to define storage spaces. If you live in a home with other people, give them their own space so they can be responsible for their own space. Kids will know how to tidy if they are taught early on that I am responsible for this space, and they will want to take care of it because it's their own. Next slide. Ideally, you want drawers because you want to see everything at a glance. But if you don't have drawers, feel free to use bins. This is one, easy, quick fix to be able to create that storage space, even if you have limited space. Next slide. If you don't have bins, use boxes. Shoe boxes are an easy and very cost-effective way to make use of this storage solution. Next slide. With little objects, like tiny little things, think bento. Have a little area where you can put all your paper clips in one place where you can see it. If you don't have little boxes, trays are a good way to contain and to really pull together little objects. Next slide. This applies to kitchen utensils. Next slide. And also your makeup, your toiletries. Next slide. When storing files, remember it's always best to store upright. Do not pile documents one on top of the other. That's one surefire way for you to lose important documents. It's always best to look for things when they are filed. Next slide. Now, if you want to put your organization skills to the next level, have a Pinterest-worthy kind of space, here are the secrets. Use uniform containers. They all have to look the same. Use the same materials. If you're doing wicker and glass, then just stick to wicker and glass. Don't mix and match. Sometimes it can work, but if you want to be sure, it's really best to have uniform or at least related or complementary materials. Next slide. Clear containers are good because you see what's inside. Sometimes when it's opaque, you can't see what's in there and you forget about it. So clear containers ideally would be a good way. And of course, a lot of the same thing looks great on camera. Next slide. When storing clothes, color code. So try to do it darkest to lightest of the same color, or try to, create a space wherein the colors just blend naturally. Like what Wilmer said, color is so important. So if you really want that wow space, that's key. Next slide. Now, let's do some folding. Folding this way is actually a great way to make use of your space because it's very efficient. Next slide. Store your underwear this way. You see everything. Next slide. And storing your shirts in a drawer where they stand upright, the risk of, messing it up is almost eliminated because when you pull something out, it doesn't disturb the rest. And I'll show you how to do it. So let's pretend that, this is your shirt. Please flatten it with your hands and gather it to the middle. So it folded towards the middle. Smooth it again. So you get that, rectangular shape. Fold it in half. But remember to leave a bit of space at the bottom because that's crucial when you fold it again. So it won't open up. And then it will stand. So when you put it back, it's so easy and it doesn't disturb the rest. Next slide. Jeans are one great thing to fold because when I used to hang my jeans, it took up so much space in my closet. But when I started folding them, it really, opened up my hanging space. So the best way to fold your jeans, so with the fly side or the zipper side, that's where you fold. Fold it in half. If the crotch area sticks out, feel free to just tuck it in. So you get this clean, straight, rectangular shape. And then fold in threes. So this is 1, 2, 3. And it stands. And so when you put it back, you get this really tidy looking bin. Next slide. Now, tip number 3 is like what Wilmer said. Please surround yourself with what makes you happy. It's very personal, so it can be different for each person. But really, what matters is you tune in to what inspires you, what nurtures you, because that's key to taking care of yourself, your well-being. Next slide. If you've always wanted to stay in hotels because they, calm you down, you feel like relaxing, you know why it's relaxing? Because there's no clutter. And you can do that for your own home. Declutter your home, declutter your room, create a power spot out of it. Next slide. If you like drinking your coffee in the morning with the newspaper or reading the latest news, then tidy your dining area and make it a cozy little nook where you really feel recharged and ready to face the day. Next slide. And of course, one quick way, like Wilmer said, you can prettify your space, make it your own, and really make it something that you love just by doing simple touches, adding a plant, changing your throw pillows, using the plates and the utensils that you received during your wedding. Use special items for every day because every day that we're alive is special. Next slide. Remember, decluttering isn't just about fixing your physical space. When you declutter, you also fix, something inside of you. For one, you're more mindful, you're more grateful, you're healthier, you live out your purpose, and you also become more productive. You're less stressed, you're focused, and you make better decisions simply by tidying. Next slide. So remember, when you tidy your space, you transform your life. Happy tidying and organizing.